Hey, Michelle, how are you doing?
Oh, Mickey, I can see.
I know huge progress, I guess, in the last week for you in terms of your eyesight. You want to tell us about how it all went down and the updates and the amazing colors and clarity you can now see post surgery?
Yeah, I mean, no, it was amazing. Like, I woke up on Friday morning. Well, and it was funny. The first thing I did, I started like our bedrooms and the way our house is like bedrooms are downstairs and the kitchen and living room's upstairs. I'm like walking up the stairs to the living room and I'm like, my carpet is so dirty. I can see all the details like that I haven't seen in so long. And then like I looked outside my like our kitchen window and we have a really nice view of like our whole town here and like the ocean, the bay. And yeah, like the world is in HD. And like that's
Yeah.
really what it is. Is you know how like on occasion, I mean, I don't go to movies that much, but like I have at one point gone to a movie that's about was in like HD something or other, and
Hmm.
visuals on it are supposed to be better and like they're more vibrant. And it was actually the nurse in. I had a follow up appointment on Friday morning after the surgery just to like see how it was going, and the nurse is actually the one that like planted that seat. She goes, "Yeah, you're seeing in HD." And I was like, "That's
That's,
exactly it. Like,
yeah.
that's what it is. Like, my vision, it's more crisp, more clear than it's ever been before. Like, I would say that
Yeah.
it's even before my
Wow.
vision started going bad, it's better than that. So it's like the best
Wow.
vision I've ever had in my life. And so in a
That's
way, it's
amazing.
like, there is a silver lining to like, it sucked that I couldn't see for the last 6 months, but like, um, it's so much better now. And so I'll share just for anybody who's like, what is she talking about? The short story is younger people can get cataracts. There's different forms of cataracts, and people who are like 40 to 60 may get like a form of cataract that's essentially like there's a layer of cells that grow on the posterior lens of in your
Hmm.
eye, and it interferes with the way that your eyes process light, and it just makes like so I was able to like see generally, but I couldn't make out details, in light situations were like really sketchy.
Hmm.
And so I learned how to like manage myself, but it was getting worse, week by week. And noticeably, like where I could tell, like,
Yeah.
oh, last week I could do this and this week I can't. And so when I went to the eye doctor and they told me that, that was the case, if you have this kind of cataract, they don't make you wait 6 to 9 months to get in, because apparently, I mean, I think like with older people, like cataracts can be like annoying, but like not that big a
Hmm.
deal. And, you could get them fixed or not. And like, it's nice, but it's not like, but with this kind of cataract, and for somebody my age, I mean, like I would have been functionally blind in 6 months, had maybe even less than that. Like I like
Wow.
just incapable of. I stopped driving like the last 2 weeks before the surgery. I had people driving me around places because I was like, I'm like, I know I'm getting it fixed, and like the last thing I want to do is like the one last swim practice that I had to drive to. I hit some kid that was riding a bike on the side of the road who I
God.
didn't see
Oh,
or something, right? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that would just be horrific, and I didn't want to take the risk. So but yeah, anyway, the surgery is like, I mean, it's a real surgery. Like I was so nervous. And like, and this is one thing I want to share too, because I've been through, and maybe there are some listeners who have experienced some anxiety, right? And when I was first experiencing anxiety, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, or first, like in a very real way, like panic attack style anxiety.
Hmm.
I didn't know what it was, and I didn't want to believe that I had that, right? Or that I was that because I was like, I prided myself on like, yeah, like I'm not the kind of person that has anxiety, kind of like it's probably an ego thing or whatever. But this time, like since then, I've been able to recognize when I'm in a situation that is causing me high anxiety. And so like I knew like that I had the surgery on Thursday, and Thursday morning I woke up and I was like nauseous, right? Like I'm just
Oof.
like I don't like it was just like the idea of somebody like I was excited to have it done, but like I wasn't excited about actually having
Yeah.
it done.
Right. Right.
Not like the 30 minutes in the operating room. Like that's the part I didn't want to do. And but I wasn't like afraid it was going to go bad. It's just, I don't know. There was just like the idea of it was horrible. And so as I'm laying there, like so the Kaiser nurses were amazing. Like the whole surgical team, like they were so good. Like you could tell, like they were just very professional, but they were also very kind. And it was like the nicest combination of
Hmm.
kind, but very professional. Just they had their job. They knew what they were doing. So, which breeded a lot of confidence in me. Like I knew that like these people know what they're doing. Nobody seemed to be fumbling around. But like the one nurse who came in and introduced herself, and she was basically like she was going to be the one administering whatever drug they were going to give me so that I would relax enough. And I was like, "Can I just have that now? Like, can you just start that?" And like it was, 20 minutes or whatever before I was about to go in, but I had the IV in already. And I'm like, "Can you just give me some?" I'm like, I'm so nervous right now. And I'm like, and I'm breathing my way through this. Like, I have my tools and my skills and I know, but like, breathing only goes so far, right? Like, I mean, like breathing
Does.
is a helpful tool and I was doing all the things, but it was like, like, it, its capacity to calm you is
Mhm.
helpful, but it's not without
Yeah,
I needed more.
and with modern medicine and science, like, we have that opportunity, right? Like, we are not
Yes.
stuck in
Yeah.
this situation where we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
just grit our teeth. But so
Yeah.
did they give you a little bit early?
No, she
No.
didn't.
Okay.
But she was very kind. I think she was like, "Tell me about your breathing." She totally distracted me, is what she did. Like,
Yes.
"Tell me about your breathing practices," So I'm like, "Okay, that'll distract me." Like, that was better than like laying there alone, like waiting to go back. But I could see like after like because their whole thing was they couldn't knock me out so much that like my eyes would roll back in my head. So that I was like, I understood once they explained to me that like we're going to give you enough to so that you're calm and you're relaxed, but not so much that you like fall asleep or like we don't want you jerking like I guess if you had like any sort
Mhm.
of eye movement, like rapid eye movement, like obviously the doctor cannot do a surgery, during like if your eyes are doing that. And so I was like, right, okay, that makes sense. And to actually have like very vague memory of like I was awake when I was in the room. I was seeing like weird like they taped my eye like my eyelids open basically, right? So I don't know what he was doing because I never actually like saw the doctor when I was in there. But like I remember seeing like black and like some vivid colors, like bright pink, bright blue. It was weird,
Wow.
right? Like it was just
Yeah,
like it was in
yeah.
another world, but like there was actual visual things going on. It was just a couple minutes like per eye. And then they took me out into the exam room. And, like 30 minutes later, I was standing up and like walking out and
It's
my daughter came
amazing.
and picked me up and drove me home and my eyes were like super dilated for like, that whole
Wow.
night
Yeah.
and I was still like kind of drugged out and then I just slept and then like the next morning like there wasn't pain, it was like an eye irritation and like
Mhm.
well that's the other thing I was probably going so like I was curious about like how do they even do cataract surgery. Like I can't even imagine because like they're replacing the lens, like right. So like I think what he did was he actually went in with some sort of scalpel or something and like scraped off like the cells that were growing on the back of that lens. And then they put in, and by the way, anyone has to have this done. You can have, there's different types of lenses that you can have them, you can opt to have them put in. And so most insurances will pay for like the basic kind of lens that will allow you to see far vision. And they do that for safety reasons, right? So that like you could drive and you can just be generally like safe navigating yourself in the world. But the reading ones, they have a special lens that is like a dual lens that allows you to see both far and near. Now they're going to charge you money for that, and I'm sure like it's different for different insurance plans or whatever. But when I talked to my husband about it, I'm like, "Can we pay for that? Like, we can pay for that, right?" Because I'm like, I'm only 51, like, and I want like I just am like, if I was 75 and doing it, I'd be like, "Yes, my readers are fine." But so we paid for the dual lenses, and that's what's giving me like the HD vision that I
HD.
have right
Yeah.
now. Like it's where it's so incredible. And so when I went in the next morning to have like a checkup, the same nurse who like she saw me the week 2 weeks prior or whatever to do like a vision test and eye movements or eye measurements or whatever. And she's like, stand here behind this line and look at that eye chart and what line can you read? And I'm like, the giant E at the top of that chart was blurry, so I was like, I can barely
Yeah.
see the giant E, but like the second
Yeah.
line can't read. And then when I went in on that Friday morning, I was like, oh my God, watch. And I read like all the way down to like line 9 or something. She's like, you have 2015 vision. Like it's,
Amazing.
like better than what it needed to be. And then the doctor too, he gave me like a thing to read because he wanted to see if I could read it. And I was able to read even like the smallest print on it. And then he gave me like a lens to look through and basically said, had you done the basic one, this is what like this would have looked like. And it was totally blurry. Like I couldn't have seen any of it. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what my vision was like before. Right. So it
Mhm.
like would have really only helped the distance. So
Yeah.
my advice would be like my
Do it.
experience, do what you want to do. But my experience is like, oh my gosh. And then he said, like, it lasts like this, right? Like, so I said, what's like in 10 years, am I going to have, problems? And he goes, no, it should be fine.
Yeah. Like, there's no
I'm like,
decay rate Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah. And
amazing.
I'm like, and so part of me was just like, wow, science, science,
Yeah.
science,
Yeah.
science did this. Science allows me to see like the way that I can see right now. And I just am so, and then it made me sad at like the state of our country. You know,
No.
I'm like, why are we defunding science? Cause like it's stuff like this is like, it's literally life changing. And the idea that like we're going to just stop looking for cures for future, like whatever other problems that
Whatever.
go
Yeah.
on or whatever. And like, I don't know, maybe they're not going to stop looking, but if you cut funding by as much as they're cutting,
Uh,
like how much are we capable then of finding new cures for things
yeah.
that go wrong
Right.
with us? And so anyway, yeah, it
Yeah.
did make me a little sad that we're not a little, it made me a lot sad
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
cutting
No, that's
funding.
amazing. And yeah, I mean, I knew you were having the surgery last week and I ended up texting you the day, like you were driving to the
Yeah, no,
surgery. I'm
Scott
like,
was driving me to the
right.
surgery. Yeah.
And I was like, my spidey sense says, thinks that thinks that you had the surgery. You're like, I'm driving there. And I'm like, well, yeah, like I was, yeah, we were on the same wavelength. And I was like, thinking about you and sending you all my best vibes for
But
an
isn't
easy
that
surgery.
also interesting that like we're I don't know how many thousands of miles
Yeah.
away, like I didn't do the math on that, but like uh, it furthers my belief that like people can send energy or like
Yeah. Like,
the quantum physics thing. I do not understand that, but there's got to be something to it, right? That
right.
like
Like,
we communicate in ways that are
yeah. That,
beyond like your normal communication, or like you just
right.
feel that like something's not right there, or like I have a feeling, or like I you popped into my head. My husband actually just had that experience the other day. We had some like old friends that were like neighbors of ours from before. He mentioned them to me like in the morning, said something about like, oh, we should give him a call. And we haven't seen him in years, haven't seen him in years. And then he says he was in the neighboring town. He'd ordered some takeout and he was waiting for it. And he goes, guess who walked in? And I'm like, what? You know, like we haven't seen these
Yeah.
people in years. And then they walk in on the same day that he said we should give them a call. And I was
Yeah.
like,
It's,
I don't think
yeah.
that's a coincidence.
I know. It's, yeah. There's definitely the weird, yeah, I can't explain it. And no one can explain it. It is definitely on that spectrum of very odd, very weird. So, but I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I love you know, the weirdness sometimes that we can't explain. But I mean, I love science, but I also love the exploration of like things we're trying to figure out, like what we don't know. That's the whole
The
driver
thing
of
is, like,
science.
if we decide, like, science might be able to figure out how and why that happens,
That
right?
happened.
So, like,
Yeah.
because if you think about it too, and like, this is going to be my like transition into our like sports
Yeah.
talk, but like, there's commonly been a bit of a divide between like the sports scientists,
Yep.
right, who are in the lab and trying to figure out the physiology behind like why we do what we do, or
Hmm.
like the best protocol for intervals and the rest and fueling and
Hmm.
all this, right? And they're trying to nail it down with science, and the coaches are like out like in the field and like
Hmm.
working with real humans, and just and there it's common that coaches know what works. They might not necessarily know why it works, but like, look, we've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years or whatever, and like I know that like this works when we do it. I don't know why.
Right.
I don't even care
Right.
why. I just want my athlete to perform, right? But I actually do care why. But you know, some athletes or some coaches like don't necessarily care. But then it's common that the coaches are ahead of
Hmm.
the
The
exercise
science.
physiologist. So like the coaches
Yeah.
are discovering like, hey, this kind of training
Yeah.
seems to be really effective. And then like the exercise physiologist will take it into the lab and start
Hmm.
like doing whatever testing they're doing on it. And they're like, oh, well, this is why, blah, blah, blah. And then they can explain it. But it's like the coaches had it figured out first. And so I feel
Yeah.
like you could do a similar thing with like the
Right.
quantum science or quantum field or whatever. If you're like, I don't know, like I've had these weird experiences, but then if we like dedicate the time and money and effort into figuring out the science behind that,
It
it's
might.
possible they could figure it out.
Right. I totally agree. Steve Magnus actually had a great historical overview of exactly this. Like he starts off the article. It's on Substack. He, says, a lot of social media influencers like, I discovered whatever hit, right? And or there's some like physiologists or in the lab, like we've discovered like what's going to, boost our LT1 more, right? But the lab portion that's like trying to understand the actual, like, the mitochondrial or the subsystem reasons why this was working. And he did a deep dive, through like, mid 1800s all the way through today of like, and this is primarily run coaching, like the big players of how the coaches were doing these experiments, right? Like it's not experimenting necessarily, but it kind of is. It's like it's field experiments of like what works with these athletes and what works with different athletes. And he went through this whole, it's quite a long article. I highly suggest it if you are interested as well, because it's a great historical overview of like the different modalities of, high volume, low volume, sprints, intervals, right? And like ultimately it's coming down to, well, it depends on the race, it depends on the athlete, what their strengths and weaknesses are, it depends on the time of the season. But we use all of the quote unquote zones, right, to elicit, the best performances. And maybe if you're a sprinter, you're going to use more of the, VO2 max and threshold zones versus like if you're an ultra marathoner, you need to spend more time probably in like zone 1, zone 2 to elicit the response you're looking for. But it was exactly that, right? It's like there's this, what the coaches know and what they're doing to get the most out of their athletes is then, years later, sometimes decades later, being proven in the lab by the physiologist. So it's a good article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah,
Well, and
let's
so what
talk.
we're going to
Yeah.
talk about today, we haven't decided what we're going to call this podcast yet, but maybe like improve the way you move. Like
Yeah.
I
I
sort
like
of like
that.
that because I like the rhyming of it. And so, and this would go along with, and even if I go back and like tell a story about like how and why, like I got interested in this kind of thing. And then I'd be curious to hear like, like what your thoughts are. But even when I was first coaching, I was reading all those books, right? Like reading the Lydiard and reading about like run training and any sort of athletic physiology book that you were going to read, they would talk about like these different systems that you're trying to build, and you're building your aerobic system and you're building your cardiovascular system and you're building, and that's the part I was really, really interested in. And then they would go into like, movement economy. And like, this is another, it's sort of just like another pillar of how you can, and I promise you, I would just skip that chapter. I would just be like, I don't know. I just wasn't super interested in how we move. Like, I definitely was on the side of the argument that like, if you just run more or you just swim more or you just do the thing more, your body will figure out the most efficient way to do it. And there is like a whole school of thought, right? Of like people who like subscribe that way of thinking. And I was one of them. That, yeah, if you just, I just have to like keep running and my body will figure it out and I will eventually do it better. Then there was a race that I remember I did. It was, I don't know, 12 years ago or something. It was here in Hawaii, a sprint race. And there was a really well-meaning, like sort of teammate, friend, training partner of mine who he had finished before me, but he was watching me like run at the end. And the thing is, like, I had done really well at this race. Like, I'd gotten like top 3 overall, or what you mean. So, like, I was like really happy with my performance at the race. And I know he was trying to help me. And he was like, "Congratulations, Michelle. That was a great race, whatever." He's like, "I got to tell you, your run form is horrible." He's like, and I think, and it was like kind of a gut punch. But at the same time, I was like, but I'm doing fine, right? Like, I'm not like,
Mhm.
I didn't at that time have like a strong enough desire or reason or need or right like it, because I was still like performing reasonably well. And so the fact that like I'm kicking my foot out in front of me with this, my toes up and landing straight on my heel with my leg like way out in front or whatever, like now that I look back on that, I'm like, man, I wish, because like that was when I was in my prime, right? Like what if
Mm.
I would have known what I know
Yeah,
now
I know.
about movement economy and like
Mhm.
applied these movement practices at a time when I actually had like the physiological capability of like using those
Mhm.
movement patterns in a way, like how much faster could I have been? And so it was like, even though I know that he was trying to help me and be nice, I just kind of like rolled my eyes and was like, but the other part of that would also be because like I didn't know how to fix it,
Mm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, great. Yeah. So I have shitty run form. Like, I don't know how
Mhm.
to fix it. Like, 'cause I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. And therefore,
Mhm.
I didn't know how to fix it. And so it was kind of like, I know I have this problem, but if you don't have a solution for my problem, then
Right.
what?
What's the
Right?
what's
Like,
the yeah, what's the point? Well, and
yeah.
then there was, and I will be honest and say I had my run form looked at once, but I had athletes that worked with run form coaches. I'm not gonna say which ones because it's been over a number of years, but the number and so some I'm not gonna prejudge or not even saying prejudge, but I'm going to try not to generalize, but a lot of the feedback was just like, you got to increase your cadence. To be honest, when I did have my run form looked at, I had a Achilles thing going on. I think it was Achilles. I don't remember. And that's the exact same thing they said to me, right? That I need to increase my cadence. And look, I mean, I am mostly leg. I have a very short torso. My natural cadence is going to be, at an easy pace, easy run is lower than what what they would prescribe it to be. And I can still, at the time in my prime, I was still able to run, sort of probably low sixes mile time, right? Like, I mean, and my sprints were quite good, right? I mean, I had great movement economy. It's just that my natural stride was different, right? And you see that across the board. Even in elites
Mhm.
now, they're saying, somebody it's like 170 for their easy runs, but when they get up to their race pace, it's more around 180, right? Like, and there's variations. There's variations depending on the body. And so I took that as like, I don't want my runners to just go to a run form coach if they're just going to tell them to increase their cadence because
Yeah,
one, I don't actually believe that that's what is necessary for everyone. I think
I don't either.
there's a, yeah,
And
like,
I don't even
so,
think that
yeah,
that's the way like to do it anymore. Like the high cadence is a result of the fact that your body is ready to move well.
right, right, right.
I mean, and not everybody has to have the same cadence, right? Like, so it's not like, um, but yeah, my philosophy around all of this now, how it's because it's really changed, is largely along the lines of like our movement is going to be an expression of how our body, like the state that our bodies are in, right? So like if we're locked up and tight and if we don't have great posture and we don't have like, and that would be like in everyday normal life, right? Like in on your living room floor or like while you're driving your car, while you're sitting at work, while you're like, you're not going to go out and magically run with perfect run form if you are tight and restricted in a lot of like, I'll call them their fascial patterns, really. Like people think of
Mhm.
them as muscles, but really like we're talking
They're
like large fascial chains. Like, and so like when I'm thinking about movement patterns now, I'm thinking in terms of large fascial chains and like letting go of tension and understanding that for a muscle to contract and relax the way that it it wants to or that it can, like it needs to be able to relax fully in order to contract fully. And so like when there's people will think that like, oh, I'm weak, like, oh, I have a weak, these muscles are weak or whatever. It's very possible that that muscle isn't weak, but that it's just stuck like in a, I'll call it permanent, but it's not permanent, just like a chronic is the word, like a chronically semi contracted state. Right.
Mhm,
And like, and if that muscle's not able to like fully relax and let go, it's also not fully able to contract. And so if it feels like you're weak, and then like the common fix, like for everything is like, well, strengthen it, right? Just strengthen your way out of that.
mhm,
Like, well, I mean, if you go back and there was another podcast, it's gonna sound like I'm changing subjects again, but like podcast that I listened to on a separate topic where the woman was talking about how when we get the root cause of something wrong, your solution is going to be also wrong,
mhm,
right? So and it's not that the problem is the problem, we can identify the problem. So say like your problem is like, I feel like I'm weak, right? I have a muscle, pick one, doesn't matter, that's weak. Then like if you know that you can't lift the thing well, or you know that you can't perform the task that you want to perform very well, and so you think that it's just because I haven't done enough strength work lately, right? And that's why I have this problem that I have. And so then so my solution then is to go get stronger. Like maybe that'll work. But if this root cause of you not being able to do the thing that you want to do is because that muscle is in like a chronically contracted state, then like
mhm,
adding strength training to an area that is already dysfunctional, you're just
mhm.
strengthening the dysfunction.
Yeah, I can see
Right.
that
Like,
in
so
a
it's
lot
like
of
not
cases,
making
yeah,
that better. And so
right.
the idea would be like, and so this is really tricky. And I feel like I took some notes here about like the things that I wanted to talk about, mainly because this is such a big topic and we are not going to get to all of it today. Right. Like, and it can't even be done like on a podcast. So when I was thinking about like, what is my goal of this podcast? It's really just to help people become aware of their movement patterns, and just like ways that they can start chipping away at making things a little bit better with the hope that as soon as you start feeling it get a little bit better, that you'll be curious enough that you'll seek out more like information to take you in that direction. Because I'd say like the way that I learned, I mean, it took me years to learn all of the, like all the knowledge that I have now about movement patterns and the way we move and the way we're supposed to move, the way our bodies want to move. It's not like, here's the book, right? And here's the one thing, like, cause it's so broad. And I mean, to our point earlier, I think it's different for different people, right? Like, so if you have long legs or if you have short legs, you have, and so it's the blanket statements about like just start strength training again, or like your back hurts and so you need to do more core work, or you just pick up your cadence and like turn over quicker. Like those common solutions that people have are often just because we're misdiagnosing the problem, right? And so if we're talking about like, why movement matters for us, like as endurance athletes, the more efficient we are, if we can like make moving quickly easy, and like where we're using less muscle to do it, then like we'll be able to go a lot longer. We'll be able to hold pace a lot longer without fatiguing, without falling apart. So I'm like, talk about like like this is a way to like when I'm teaching about swimming, and it's like the easiest thing you can do to swim faster is reduce drag. Right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to go to the gym to do that. You don't have to follow any special diet to do that. You don't have to, like, all you have to do is like be aware of your alignment and really think about it and put your body in that position. Right. But here's the problem is that some people, especially older people, are incapable of achieving that position. Right. So if it's a streamline off the wall or something like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like little kids, like the reason that little kids can learn how to swim really easily and they don't overthink it. And you just like with little kids, it is true. Like you put them in the water with their friends on the swim team and you just tell them to go and tell them to like work harder on this or race your friend or whatever. And it is true. Their brains are so plastic that they like just
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. Right. And they get it and they're super mobile. And so they can get in the positions they need to get in. And if they just don't overthink it, and do it enough, they will get better at it. Like that is a true statement. But I just don't think it translates over to adults
Well,
in
and
the
I
same
think there's
way.
also the plastic brain, right? Like a more plastic mind and probably less ego, right? I mean, those
Hmm.
things kind of go hand in hand, right? When you have a very open and plastic and you're curious about what's possible, you see all shades of gray, right? Like then and your ego is probably a lot lower, less, right? Like you're not having because when we get older and things have worked in a certain way, right? Like you got to your 20s and 30s, you were fast, and you're like, okay, well now I'm slowing down. Why am I slowing down? Oh, I just got to run harder. I got to run more. I mean, I see this all the time in masters athletes and primarily in the run because it is, I mean, we do slow down as we age, but I believe we can slow down less if we have good movement patterns. We have good neuromuscular firings, right? And some of that is doing, the quick speed work. And I do think that for some people, and I'm going to primarily say older women who are losing muscle mass, there is a time and a place to do some strength training, which will
Yeah.
increase your
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah.
That's I agree though, if you've got poor movement patterns and you've got things that are locked up, and this, I mean, it does, I've noticed it myself, right? I have now decades of sitting at a desk. I had decades of riding my bike, which I do think riding my bike as much as I did, and I got really, I got a lot stronger as a cyclist. I think it impacted my run form. I know it did. I don't think it did.
And I can like
So,
at this point, it's like I understand enough about like the way that
right,
like exactly why that happened. Like, yes, you were like in this position.
right.
Yeah, for sure. Swimming
So,
too. Like
yeah,
swimming is a very forward, crunching. Biking is forward crunching. And with running, you want forward or, like anterior open. So yeah. So like what I'll challenge people to do, like, because the idea is like, oh my God, like where do you even start? Right? Like
I know.
where we start. Because the thing is, what we're not doing is like diagnosing any one individual here, so I'm
No.
going to be speaking in like very broad general terms. But the idea is that like for you to be aware of like what does it feel like, because this is the other thing too, like I've been coaching for 16 years now. The amount of people, athletes, who have told me that like they don't think at all about how they're
Yeah.
moving,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And the thing is, I want to say like, what are you doing? I was like that too. So like I literally cannot judge and I should not judge, right? Because like I was like that too. But like now that I've come out and I've experienced, like I'm on the other side of that, I'm like, no, really, you should like pay attention and be aware of like how your body's moving. But I think that like that in and of itself, that's probably like step number one
Mhm.
would be to like spend some time quietly, like just being aware of your body. Or like even some of those, you ever do those like or the yoga nidra sessions,
Mhm. Yeah,
like
well,
those
I haven't,
recordings?
but yeah, yeah.
And I mean, even starting with something like that, which is so if you haven't done yoga nidra, it's usually like a 20-minute sort of session where it's just an audio recording. You're listening to like a calm voice. And she's telling you to like just bring your awareness to different parts of your body, like your right forearm, your right elbow, your right shoulder. And it just directs your brain's attention to like, hey, think about that body part. Right. And then think about your whole right arm, and then move to the left arm and do these things. And that can be a really good entry point. It like if you're a person who's like, I never think about my body. I don't think about how I move. Like I couldn't even tell you what I was doing in order to move the way that I was moving. I have no idea. Well, then start gaining awareness of your body. Right. And by just and it is literally a choice. Like there's no real special skill here required. Like our brains are wired and capable of doing this. Like if we decide that we want to spend time like being
Mhm.
aware of our body. The other thing that I will just put there is that some people don't want to be aware of their body,
It's true.
right? Like if
Yeah,
you don't like your body, if you have
yeah.
had painful experiences in your body, I mean, a trauma response is to
Mhm.
remove yourself from your body,
Mhm.
and that's a legit, reasonable trauma response. And like coming back to a place where you're capable of improving your movement patterns is likely not going to happen as long as you're still like in that trauma response and not able to be in your body. And I've said things to athletes before, like, be teammates with your body. And like one particular athlete was like, what are you talking? Like, that's the most foreign concept. Like in her mind, her job, and this came from like religious teachings when she was younger, was to dominate her body. Right. So her body is going to give her all sorts of like sinful signs, right? Like
Mm.
that she needs to learn how to ignore, or she needs to dominate those, like any
Mhm.
urges she might have.
Mhm.
Her job is to dominate the body. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That's going to be really hard to break. Right. Cause like that's
Yeah,
deeply ingrained, like,
right?
like a thought pattern. And so if that's you, just know that like this can take some time. And by time, it might be years, right? But know that like the years are going to pass anyway. Like 3 years from now, it's going to be 2028, and you can either be in the same spot, or you can be like, hey, I spent 3 years like really learning how to work with my body, and now I'm a teammate of my body, and now like I understand symptoms and signs for my body in a different way than I did before. So really, like for me, the number one thing is awareness of your body, being able to feel, what are my hips doing? What are my feet doing? What are my hands doing? What is my head position doing? And maybe, if you're running in a treadmill in the mirror, you can watch some of these things and like start to get a feel, and
Mhm.
like start watching people when they're running. Cause this helped me a lot too. Like as I was learning about like what is, cause that would be the thing. Like, what am I doing? What's my body doing? But then like, what
Mhm.
should it be doing? And
Mhm.
while there are different ways to run, like for sure, there's really a way that like our bodies are meant to work, right?
Yeah.
Like our hips are supposed to rock and rotate, right? Like
Mhm.
your pelvis should not be stuck in a neutral position where it doesn't move. And like your shoulders are meant to be able to move and like rock and roll around. And so if you go to get a massage and the massage therapist is like, oh my God, you're like locked up like concrete here, which I mean, that was the case for me for like a long time. And I just genuinely thought like, it's just how I am. Right. And like, it's just, that's how I am. Like, I'm just locked up like that. And again, I didn't have like the, I don't know, the
We didn't know how
need
to
or
change
the
it.
desire.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. The
right, or
motivation,
the
to change it
motivation.
wasn't
Yeah.
there. Like the knowledge. And I also maybe thought like, I didn't know that it was as possible to change as it is. Right? But like it actually is very possible to change, but you have to decide that you want to start. And so some big picture concepts to drill home. You want all of your muscle systems to be able to contract and relax fully. And so any muscle that's like super locked up and tight and restricted, that
Yeah, it
muscle
doesn't
is
have
not going to be
full.
as functional as as it could be. Like just, and that's a blanket statement that I feel like is pretty true. Like I feel
Mhm.
like that's hard to argue with. from any angle.
Mhm.
So, so just know that like muscles should be able to contract and relax fully. So if there's a parts of you that you know like this muscle is chronically really tight and like there's an area for you to work on. Know that when a body part is restricted or if there's movement that's restricted, right? Like in a shoulder, you had shoulder surgery or like that hip was broken and like that hip or that ankle is like, super locked up for pick a reason, right? Like sometimes it's just like, it's a real, like, I don't know, call it real. All injuries are real, but like, an acute, a car ran over my ankle or whatever, right? There's that, but then there's like,
Yeah.
there's overuse injuries and then there's acute, like, and they're different. But regardless, if there's a joint that isn't like moving properly and it's restricted, and movement all around that is restricted, our bodies are amazing at compensating. And like this is what
Mhm.
my body was doing, right? For decades while I was performing reasonably well, but below my ideal capacity had I known better. We're excellent at compensating until we're not, right? Because like your body, when it wants to move in a certain way, it will figure out a way to do that even if it's not the most efficient, effective way, because like there's your hip or your shoulder or your ankle or pick the thing, like, isn't working right. There will be another body part that jumps in and is like, oh, I'll do that job. Right. I'll take over and do the thing that this body part can't do. And that is commonly how chronic overuse
Mhm.
injuries come about. Right.
Yeah.
And like the calf is a really good example here. So like
Mhm.
if your if your foot tissues are really tight and your ankle mobility isn't good,
Mhm.
your hips are probably locked up, like those things are connected. And then your calf is going to take up a lot of slack on that. Your
Or the
calf is going to do extra
Mhm.
work that
Mhm.
it wouldn't have to do if the other systems around it were working well. Your calf wouldn't have to do that thing, but it will do it, and it'll do it for a really long time until the calf finally says like, this is bullshit. I'm not doing this anymore. And fuck off. And then it like seizes and it grabs and it tightens up on you. So like you can't walk anymore. And like the amount of like, I don't want to say everybody, but like most runners that have been around for a long time have like had that experience of like, it just seized on me out of nowhere. Right. And like, that's always out of nowhere. I didn't, and it's like, okay, it wasn't really out of nowhere. Right. Like this has likely been like on the back burner for months that like the hips and the feet and the ankles have been locked up and the calves have been overworking for like a really long time and they've done that job and you've ignored it. And then the calves said like, no. So I feel like just being aware that that tight body part, wherever it is on you, because we all have our spots, right? And sometimes they move around or whatever. There will be compensation somewhere else in your body for whatever that is. You will get away with it until you won't.
Mhm.
And then it'll be this injury, quote unquote, out of the blue that isn't at all out of the blue. So, like, that's why we're talking about movement patterns like the way that we are and not ignoring like that tight, restricted body part you have.
Yeah. I've seen or I've been curious about well, there's a linkage between plantar fasciitis and also calf issues, which when I start to ask, well, how is your hip mobility or your glutes? Or, oh, yeah, I can't sit for very long, right? Like it's a chain, right? And somewhere, maybe it's not the calf, maybe it's a plantar fasciitis, right? That's
Maybe it's
gonna
your pelvic
become
floor or your diaphragm. I mean, it literally can be like all of
right.
these parts.
Right, right. So, yeah, totally, completely agree. And unfortunately, well, I always am sure you too, right? Like encourage athletes to also go seek expertise, physical therapy, physical therapist, right? And now with some injuries, or some overuse, like chronic, right? Like there's pain, it's not getting better. Now I take it to you need to go get an MRI, right? Like go get a doctor to give you an MRI. X-rays, I know we have to have X-rays for some stupid reason. For most of the stuff that we're dealing with in endurance sports, an MRI is what you actually need. And I know it sucks, right? But if you got insurance, you're just having that data, right? That you don't have a stress fracture or something else going on. Um, for me now, as a coach, it's like we have to. And I did just have an athlete that had plantar fasciitis, took some time off, not getting better, finally went in, I mean, we're talking not getting better for like months, and so get in. Yeah, it's a partially torn plantar fascia, right? The plantar fascia is partially torn, which is that's
But I think it
That's
always, I mean, isn't that kind of like the idea of plantar fascia? Is that like the fascia starts like pulling off of the bone? Like, and like that's why, I
yeah.
mean, I think that that's like, um, really, I don't want to say standard, but like, I think that's what
I think
plantar fasciitis is. You know what I mean? Like,
true. I think there's different degrees of it, and
yeah,
from what I understand, this one's pretty bad. I mean, they're saying no running. I mean, and we had already been doing no running, but they were still doing some hiking, and this and I get it, right? Like we don't want to take time off of what we love to do, but ultimately, like I am, how do I say this? A lot of times, though, when we do seek medical advice and opinions and help, they are fixing the thing, right? Like the plantar fasciitis or the calf issue, and they're not addressing the full chain. The good ones may, right? Like I have seen some good physical therapists that will address those bigger chain issues. But I think what Michelle and I are on board with is like the bigger movement patterns, including tightness and how are you move. If you have a muscle that's always tight, that's an area you probably need to work on. How do you work on it? There is gentle stretching. I am not a fan of like the, serious, like long, extreme stretching, right? Like to
yes,
be like in a big one for me is like hot yoga. People love to do hot yoga. Well, some people do. I think it's the worst thing ever because I don't want to be hot. And there's a higher chance of injury. I mean, there's on the one hand, like being warm does allow your body to usually get into positions, movements, stretches to hold longer because it's warm, right? And you're warmed up. But then there are a lot of situations where you still you'd overdo it. And that's why hot yoga tends to have a higher injury rate than a lot of the other more normal yoga modalities. So I just always caution, right? Caution when we've got areas that are tight or tense or, we do want to pay some attention to it, but don't overdo it right away. It's got to be a
yeah. And I'm
slow
not even sure
situation.
that like
Yeah.
stretching is, I got an email just this morning actually from like a local stretch lab, right? And so like
Interesting. Yeah.
I haven't been in, and like there's a part of me. So here's the thing, like, and this is the kind of person I am. I knowing what my philosophy around movement and movement patterns and fascial patterns and like the chain, like all the things that I feel like I know and understand about movement would lead me to believe that having another person physically stretch me out and hold
Yeah.
me for periods of time would not be the way to improve the way I move, right? Like
Yeah.
that's my like my starting premise would be
Yeah.
no on that. But I've also heard from people, friends, athletes, whatever, that they come out of there and they feel great. So I mean, I have an open enough mind to be like to want to go in and be like, tell me your philosophy. Where are you coming from here? What are you thinking? Where's the, like
Mhm.
how are you approaching this problem, and like why are you choosing? Because again, what we were talking about is like what is the root cause?
Mhm.
And then based on what you think like we all know what the problem is. The problem is I feel tight and restricted, right? So, like, if you think that the root cause is just that that muscle is too tight and restricted, then your solution is maybe, well, let's just stretch out the muscle, right?
Mhm.
And like maybe in some cases, like that's appropriate. And in my mind, I'm thinking in terms now of fascial chains. And so, if you don't know what we're talking about with fascia, fascia is like a web that surrounds everything in our
Everything.
bodies, like all of our organs, our bones, our muscles, and it's like it feels so complex, like you can't even really imagine it. But I also like to, like, if you ever like cut open a chicken breast, and
Mm.
like that,
Yeah.
like there's like a thin lining that's sort of like on top, that's like it's fascia, right? That it's like on top of. And so so you can, that just like helps you visualize. And I've heard this example too, and this makes a lot of sense. So like when you think about the idea that when you have tension or restriction somewhere, right? Say it's in my shoulder. I crashed on my bike, I hurt my shoulder, I had surgery on the shoulder, right? So now I'm naturally going to like protect that shoulder, and now I have restriction in that shoulder. It doesn't move that well. So like the if that fascia is has like scar tissue on it and it's locked down and it's not as like malleable as it should be. If all of our fascia everywhere in our body's connected, then it's like that tightness somewhere ends up being tightness everywhere.
Mhm.
And it's going to pull on other places in your body. So like you might find that like, oh, you had surgery on your right shoulder And then your left hip is like acting up like out of the blue. And like you haven't made the connection that the left hip pain that you're having is absolutely related to the shoulder surgery you had 10 years ago. Like it totally could be connected. But when we think about it, like if you want to use a visualization on this, do you imagine like that you start to blow up a balloon, right? And as I blow up the balloon, I'm going to take like a piece of like duct tape and put duct tape on the balloon. And then I'm going to continue blowing up the balloon. But like around that duct tape, like the tension like behind the duct tape isn't going to change, right? But like the tension everywhere else is like even more. And so, and that is a similar kind of thing as like what we're talking about when it's like there's tension somewhere is tension everywhere. So because of the way that our bodies work and are built with this fascial chain, thinking in terms of like, oh, that's all connected. So when there's an area that hurts, understanding that its root cause is, I mean, sometimes it really could be that, right? Like, I mean, like if somebody hit you somewhere or you have like a
Mhm.
blunt trauma injury,
Yeah.
you fell on your knee, right? So then your knee swells up and it like, so I don't, this is not a blanket statement that that the cause is never like where the pain is, but it's really common, especially with chronic issues, that the root cause is not where the pain is. And so if we're looking at a solution to my pain, a solution to my knee pain is to address the knee, right? Then it's like, well, I'm that again, if the root cause is wrong, the solution is going to be wrong. So it's like, I'm
Mhm.
going to try to like just baby the knee. Then again, I'm not actually fixing the problem. And along those lines, and this is a little bit of a segue, but back to the like listening to your body, being a teammate with your body, working with your body, understanding that symptoms, anything that you feel, is your body's way of communicating with you. And it's trying to tell you something. And so when we take painkillers,
Yeah. The NSAIDs. God.
right? So like we
Yeah.
take painkillers to block the pain. I don't want to feel the pain. And so this is me saying, I'm not saying there's no place for painkillers. Like at certain times, depending on the situation, like there's a time for painkillers. If painkillers are helping you sleep at night, maybe that's a really good opportunity to like take the painkillers. But a painkiller that is reducing the pain so that you can then keep running on that injured area is not helping you heal. And so the amount of people that are like, I'm icing an ibuprofen and like, it's fine, coach. Like I can keep running. You're like, oh my God, no. You know what I mean? Like that's such short-term thinking. And so again, if you're like, I have this 10K that is a qualifying race for this thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's certain situations where you're like, I'm young. My ability to recover from this is going to be fine. I'll be able to, like, there are certain situations where like I might tell a 26-year-old, right, who has a really
Mhm.
important 10K that she wants to run and like she can take the ibuprofen and it's going to help her through it. But then after we're going to address this and deal with
Right.
it, like maybe in that situation, like I'd be like, okay, like go ahead, but not if it's a chronic,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not it,
Yeah.
painkillers and ibuprofen are not solving your problem. And so back to that whole like working with your body, the symptoms are just that's your body's way of communicating with you. Your job is to listen. What's it trying to tell me?
Yeah.
What's it trying
Agreed.
to say?
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. And there's a degree of, accepting what it's trying to say. And that might mean you
Yeah.
need to stop running. And the
Temporarily for
acceptance
a little
for a
while.
little
Yeah.
while, right? Like it is, yeah. But of course, yeah, running is a higher risk. It's just the mechanics of running are more impactful. And I think as we age, the movement patterns are, unless we're cognizant of doing what we
Hmm.
need to do to take care of our bodies from a recovery standpoint, I mean, hydration, right? Like for fascial health, huge, huge.
Huge.
I mean, I think, my opinion, and this is a general statement, but I think athletes are dehydrated. All of them. I think the whole
All of them
population
all the
is
time.
dehydrated, but I think athletes even more because we're out in the heat exercising and, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the chronic dehydration is really bad for fascial health, right? And keeping the fascial loose and able to slide over the muscles and keep everything fluid and flowy, I guess. But yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know where I was going with that other than
That's a
run
really
in.
great point that you're making about like fascia.
Yeah,
So, like healthy fascia should glide and slide. And when it's
right,
doing that, then it allows muscles to contract and relax the way that they are meant to. And so it's
right.
like when you get this whole system, like healthy and functioning right, then it's like the good posture, good form, efficient, effective running,
Hmm.
it just happens. And so like I think if we go back to like using running as an example, and
Hmm.
like you were talked about before about, like running form and running clinics and like trying to
Hmm.
do things with your run. And so like where I would agree is that trying to fix your running while you're running is not likely
Right.
the way,
Right.
right? Because there's a reason that you're running the way that you're running. So if you're running in a way where like you're sitting, this is like one of the most common things. Like go out to like any marathon and watch anyone who's finishing in over 3:15.
Hmm.
Again, very general statement, but like let's just say anyone who's finishing over like if you're under 3:15, you're probably running pretty efficiently, right? Like you probably are because like that's what it takes. But like if you're 4 hours ish, the most common thing you see is that people's hips are like locked up. They're sitting back some, right? So their
Hmm.
center of
The
mass is
back
like kind of
lean.
behind, and then they're kicking their feet forward. So, like, what you see is head is forward, head is jutted forward, hands are jutted forward. They're reaching forward with their hands and they're reaching forward with their feet. And like all three of those things are connected. And like, and if you're like, how do I fix that? Well, like the reason that you're doing that is because you're trying to counterbalance. Like your body's trying to constantly have you like not fall over. I mean, like it's where's your weight and where's your balance? It's like if your hips are locked up and your hips are back, you're going to compensate with like feet, hands, and head forward, and that's how you're like keeping balance. Versus like if you can open up your hips and get that part right and get your head stacked on top of your shoulders, and that's where like this tall run posture comes from, where it's
Hmm.
like, oh, if I can lead with like my chest and my hips are forward and my head is, but it starts with your head position, right? Because if my head is forward, if everything else is forward, I literally would just fall on my face. So like if I have a head forward position, which is just like so many people do, right? Like we're on a computer,
Hmm.
like there's so many
Yep.
life things that put us in a head forward posture, then your body's going to do some things to counterbalance that. Because if it doesn't, you'll fall straight on your face, right? It has to have weight back. Your head is heavy. It's like 20 pounds, right?
Right.
So
Some or
like
more.
yeah, like, yeah, like your shoulders are going to hurt. Like there's all sorts of issues that will stem from that. And so you're like, what if I just made one little change? And this is the whole thing. Like, let's be curious and open-minded about like what happens if I make this change and I start working on head and neck posture and I get my head. So my head is stacked right up over my shoulders, right? Does that allow me then to have like more chest up when I run? Like, oh, it does. So like that's something that you would need to fix in your everyday life. Like if you don't fix it in your everyday life, you're not going to just go out and fix it on your morning run or your
Agreed.
evening run.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so the reason, like, I guess like that's the whole point is that any weird movement you're doing, whether
Hmm.
it's, and typically this is more along the lines of like swim and run. Biking, I do think movement patterns matter for biking too, but like
Hmm.
way less. But for swimming and for running, when I'm watching people swim and run and they're doing something weird and wacky, it's it's commonly the fix is not going to be like just change what your hand is doing or change what your
Hmm.
foot is doing, because your foot is doing that for a reason. Like it's reacting to
Hmm.
something else. And like a long time ago when I was coaching swimming and I was trying to help a guy, he was an older guy, and I was sort of new to coaching swimming. And so I didn't know everything that I know now as far as like just tools in my tool
Hmm.
chest to like help people improve. So this guy had like this really wide scissor kick, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
really, it was
Hmm.
really wide. And he's like trying to figure out. And so I'm like, just like use a pull boy. You're like, find a way to, like, I'm like literally trying to just like stop him any way that I
Doing
knew
that. Yep.
how to like stop doing this like wide scissor kick. But like, if I could go back and coach that guy again, I would be like, let me look forward to be like, what are you doing with your arms? Right?
Hmm.
Because like the most common thing, and it just took me like however many years of coaching to figure this out, but it's like if you're swimming and
And
you're pulling across the center line, right? Then like you're throwing your balance off from
hmm.
the way that your pull is up front. And so you're the reason for that wide scissor kick is because your body's trying to counterbalance this like narrow, excessively narrow movement you have up front. And so again, like cause solution, if I'm like, your cause is that you're just kicking too wide. So the solution is use a pull buoy to stop yourself from kicking so wide. That's not likely to be the appropriate solution to that problem. But it's like, where's the root cause? The root cause is that you're off balance. Your body's
Hmm.
doing this wide kick, trying to get you in balance. So what can you do to alleviate your body's
Hmm.
desire to use this wide kick to balance you out? It would be like, oh, let's look at your head position and the channel that you're pulling your hand in.
Right.
Right. And so
Right.
there's like root cause, fix that. The kick magically fixes itself. You didn't even
Hmm.
have to think about it. It just falls into place. And so I feel like a lot of this stuff with the running, like in the flow running that like the flow running style that I've tried to teach isn't about what you're doing when you're running. It's about like trying to improve your fascia and the way that your joints are stacked so that your posture is in a way
Hmm.
and like that your tissues aren't like tissues that are commonly locked down and preventing you from being able to achieve a leg that extends behind you because
Hmm.
you're just so locked up in the front, right?
Hmm.
So like there are reasons that you're running the way that you're running. And so it's like go on your living room floor and work in easy ways addressing those fascial chains and patterns to allow your body to go back to moving more like it did when you were a kid.
Hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Like 10-year-olds or like not even 10, you probably have to go back to like 5 or 6 at this point. But like you go back to like watch 5 and 6-year-olds run and like almost all of them have perfect run form. And
Yeah.
nobody's ever
Absolutely.
taught them how to run. And it's
Right.
because like the human body's capable of doing it. When you're not capable of doing it, it's likely because of some lifestyle factor that you have that is like you're sitting a lot and we're staring at screens a lot and we have this forward head posture and we've been through that trauma and like whatever, like there's something that's causing our body to be in the state that it's in that is then preventing you from like making the right shape of running or the most effective shape of running. And so like just trying to make the shape without like addressing the root cause. Like that's my big picture thing is like
Yeah.
it's the root
Absolutely.
cause
Right.
and like the idea being like get your posture sorted, get your breathing sorted, take care of your fascial chains, make your hips move, like figure out how your joints are supposed to move and just chip away. And there's no magic like solution here that like just do this one exercise once
Which is frustrating for people
and problem solved.
because people want just a simple solution, right? Like
Yeah.
this is an easy fix. And if I do this, if I hire, I mean, yes, you should hire this coach, right? Like you should hire Michelle, right? Or you should take Michelle's course. But even within that, it's not going to be like now you're going to give them a simple solution. Well, you follow the program, make the
But
changes,
then like
right?
keep following the program. And it's not
Right.
even just follow the program. It's like I think even in like so to people who don't know, like I created a whole 6 week course. Actually, I think I made it shorter. So now it's like a 5 week course, but like a 5 week course on this, but it's not I mean, it's not just as simple like do this thing mindlessly. And even in the beginning, like there's a whole like 5 minute video on like your movement is your responsibility. And so like I'm going to start giving you like tips and tools and tricks here to like in a way to think about this, but it's still ultimately on you to assess your lifestyle, like what is making you restrict, where are you restricted, and then incorporating the moves on the regular to combat that. Because unless you're going to change your whole lifestyle, like, like doing yoga on Sundays,
Yeah. One
like
day a week
isn't
is,
likely, you know what I mean? Like, and then sitting the other 6 days, whether that's on your bike or in your car or at your desk or on an airplane, like it doesn't, like you have to go out of your way to combat. And then, and what that goes back to is what we talked about in the beginning. Here's our full circle moment, the awareness. I am aware of my body. And so I feel like once you get to the point where you've experienced what it feels like to feel really stacked, really relaxed, and like, Lawrence is the one that says this all the time, and I didn't understand what he meant until I got it. And then when I experienced it, I was like, oh my God, that's what he meant. He would always say, move with length and space, move with length and space. And so, like, if we just, let's just riff on that for a minute, because I didn't know like what that meant. But there's so much to this and it goes so deep into like emotional state and what we
hmm
believe about ourselves. And there's so many of us, especially women, right? We're taught to like be quiet, don't make a ruckus, Don't be seen, make
Stay
yourself
small.
smaller,
Yeah.
stay small, right? And so like when we do that, I mean, you see if you're watching me on YouTube right now, like I'm just or you can even think of like what is the posture that you make when you don't want to be seen and you're making yourself smaller, right? Like I'm contracting everything in the front. From this position, there's zero chance I'm going to run well, right? It's just not going to happen. And so it stems so far beyond just this like here's this one move that you do, but it's along the lines of like I believe that I'm worthy of taking up space.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
going to let myself take up space. I can make myself bigger. And when I allow myself to make myself bigger and I take up length and space, and from there, where I'm going to stretch myself out. Like, what's my run stride going to be? Like, is it going to get longer? You bet it is, right? Like, how does that coincide with your faster cadence? It doesn't. And it
It
doesn't
doesn't.
matter, right? Because my run stride is longer. Like, I'm
Right.
running with length and space. Like, I've got my chest up, my head is in the position, like, my leg is extending behind me. I'm taking up space. Same thing with swimming. I'm reaching really far. I'm taking up space. And so if you think in those terms of like when you're on your living room floor and you're doing these like contract and relax movements, because really like that's what a lot of it is. And that's why I feel like my problem with like a stretch lab like feels like you're just trying to
Right.
stretch out my muscles. And I'm like, no, what I want is a really healthy contract and relax pattern,
Hmm.
right? Gentle,
Yeah.
easy contract and relax of all the muscles. And when I can get that, then it's like my posture is likely to be better because my joints are more likely to be able to be stacked on top of each other. And then from there, if I have an attitude of like I should take up space, right? Like, I mean, just everything and then is like, you'll just feel your run like fall into place. So like, I'm sorry that that's not the one, here's like the one magic tip and you know, to like improve your running immediately today. It's not that. It's a long process of understanding all these things and chipping away at like, why do you feel like you need to make yourself smaller? Like, where does that come from? And like, how do you combat that within yourself? So that, yeah, I feel better about taking up space now and then let it show up for you when you're running and then it just starts to like feel really good. So I do have one athlete she made a change. She's a runner. She made a change recently where she got like a stand up desk. So she has an office job where she works. She's a marathon runner, a good one. And so we've been working on like her movement patterns and like specifically like the cue that works for her is like running tall. And she's like a short person, you know, she's only like 5'2" or something. You know, she's little. And so she's got quick cadence because she's little. She's got short legs. Perfect. So she doesn't need to like correct her cadence, right? But she can have longer stride length. And what does it take to
Hmm.
have longer stride length? You need more open hips, right? But like to have open hips, you need to have like a chest that comes up. And so she got a stand up desk and like that has made a really big difference in combination with her
With.
like being aware of like, I'm trying to run taller. I'm trying to run with my chest up. And and I'm not sitting all day long, it's so much easier to get into that. And by the way, like her easy run, like this weekend, that was her notes was like after a week of having the stand up desk instead of sitting down, her long runs easy when her heart rate's low and all of a sudden it's hot are typically like high nines, 10-minute pace, something like that, you know, and she's like a 3:30-ish, 3:35 marathoner. And her long run was 18 miles at 9:30 pace, same heart rate. It's just as easy. She goes, it's just easier to move faster
Yeah.
when I'm doing it with good posture. I'm like,
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding,
Yeah. It's
that
so
part,
true.
right? Like, and so it's kind of like, and it's taken her a long time. There was no one magic thing. It was just every week she's aware, she's commenting to me. I'm giving her like another little tip, right? And so we're just chipping away at like all these little things. She's taking the steps of like, get me a stand up desk. Let's see if this helps. And then she's like, oh, hey, guess what? When I'm not all locked up, it's easier to run quicker.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm like, that's it.
yeah, and it's well, we say it's not easy to make these changes, but it's actually it's against the grain of the no pain, no gain because she's not doing anything harder. She's not striving. She's not like yeah, and she's not doing anything to like she's not adding more volume to her. There's time and place for volume, but so many athletes are locked into the idea that it's like the only thing that will work to get them faster is more speed work, I mean, it's more speed work and then more volume, right? Like I got to run more. And so, uh, and that might be the case in some situations for sure. Like that, yes. But if you're not if you're not moving well, you're leaving a lot of potential on the table, right? That you're not capitalizing on. And maybe you'll be fine. Maybe you're not a runner that's in the category of being having overuse injuries. Cause we have focused a lot of like, when you're not moving well, it can lead to, issues. But
Hmm.
alternatively, like, when you're not moving well, you're just also not moving, with ease. And when you're not moving with ease, your heart rate's higher and your metabolic cost is higher, right? I mean, and this is proven on the bike, right? If you get a better bike fit, your metabolic efficiency can go down, right? Like it actually is easier to push bigger watts, right? And so there is, while we didn't really dive into the bike, but like, bike fits make a big difference in terms of your energy costs, right? And how much
Yeah.
power you can push and your heart rates and how comfortable you are as well. And that all plays into it. So yeah, that's
It's
great to
all
hear
that
that
movement
she's
pattern stuff, you know what I mean?
right.
And yeah, and so it is a matter of like, if you're already at the limit of your capacity to run
Hmm.
more because your life, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, if you're a professional runner and you have the ability to run up to 100 miles a week and you're only running 60, there's low hanging fruit for you there, right? Because you have the time and ability to run more. But if you work 40 or 50 hours a week, you have kids and like, you're like, look, the most I can run is 30 miles a week, right? So like, we're going to
Hmm.
work with what you have.
Hmm.
Then running more is not an option for you, but running more effectively is. And improving the way that you move and thinking about it in this big picture, holistic, like that's what it is for me, is it's like, it is a big picture, holistic thing. It's not like, here's this one little thing that you can do, and
One
knowing
session. Yeah.
that everything is related and that there are more efficient, effective ways to move, and that you can chip away at improving that for yourself. And again, like, time is going to pass anyway.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think
Absolutely.
believing that you can do it is step one. And then I'm just going to plug right now on, if you're watching on YouTube, great, because like you can just go to this YouTube. I have a whole bunch of videos that
Hmm.
are 5 or 6 or 7 minutes long on like a Monday movement playlist, I think is what it's called, like on my Flow Running. And the other day, like I had an athlete it was interesting. Like, so she was complaining about shin pain, right? First. And I was like, oh, you never have shin pain, right? And she's like a good runner, but she's had 2 kids, like she hasn't been running as much lately. And so we're like trying to build her run back. And I'm like, shin pain, like that's weird. But I'm like, if you have shin pain, like that's telling me that you're like picking your toes up and you're doing something, and like likely then your hips are locked back. So my mind is immediately going to like, the problem is not your shins. The problem
Right.
is like
Right.
somewhere else. So like, where else are we going to look for this? But then like, she didn't tell me that time, but like in the next week, she's like, well, my shins are feeling better, but my left hip has been hurting for a while. So like, oh, of course. So like, that's why the shins were hurting, right? Is like, so there's something in your left hip that is like likely locked up. And like, I've worked it out to like, it's probably like a licus or like something in there, that just based on what she's
Hmm.
explaining to me. And so I was looking back on like specific videos that I've made, because I had some ideas of like moves that I wanted her to do. And so just on Sunday, I was going through my like Monday movement playlist, looking for the videos, be like, hey, like focus on this one, focus on that one, or whatever. I'm like, this is going to sound bad, but I mean, I made those videos like 6 or 7 months ago. And as I go back, I'm like, these are gold. Like, this is really good stuff, right? Right? Like, because
Yeah.
I'd forgotten like what I'd made, but it's like, these are really, really good videos. And I can totally see people watching them and kind of rolling their eyes and being like, how did that, it's such a stupid, simple move, right? Like, how in the world would that move help me? And I understand that mindset because like, I used to have it. So like, if you have that mindset and you watch those videos and you're like, these are dumb, there's no way that like that could work for me. What I would suggest is that you slow your breathing down,
Hmm.
right? Because like, you're in a mode, in that striver mode that you were just talking about, like no pain, no gain. Like, I need to strive. I need to work harder. I need to reach forward. Like that, the same person has forward head posture, is reaching forward when they run, is kicking their feet forward when they run. They are striving and trying so hard, and it's not effective. And so it's like, the idea of like trying to make it easier for yourself is so foreign, because you're like, I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be hard. I feel
Hmm.
accomplished when it's hard. That is a mindset that is very much involved in like, I am not enough as I am.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so again, like there's so much that is like intertwined in that. It's like, all right, take a step back. Like, let's breathe low and slow. Like, let's get to a point where your whole system is able to calm down and relax. And then, like, genuinely work on like all these really easy movements. And
Mhm.
then just notice the shift, not only because it does, like, it changes your worldview. Like, your whole worldview can change in a way that would seem potentially uncomfortable if you want to strive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I can't agree anymore. And yeah, from the flow running course, or the flow running YouTube channel, do you have a link to your flow running course that we can
I'm not even sure if
direct?
I did. I
Okay.
think maybe I did. But like, I mean, it's flowrunning.run is the website for the run course. But I would start with the Monday
Monday
movements.
movements. Okay. Yeah.
Start with those because A, they're free. And and if you feel like you're gaining, like if you can do those Monday movement playlist videos and you feel like this is changing something in me, and you have the patience, because what I found with the flow running course, I still believe in the flow running course like
Yeah. It
with
was fantastic. Yeah.
100%. But I now understand, having like put it out there in the public and like gotten feedback from people, it's not for everyone. There are people that absolutely do not have the patience to benefit from the flow running course. Like, you have to decide that I'm willing to like really pay attention to this, to really get curious about it, to really follow it, to like really dedicate myself to it, not just once a week, like 10 minutes a day, all the time. And the thing is, it sounds like a pain in the butt. When you have the experience of like, this is helping me, then it
Hmm.
becomes like, it's not such a pain in the ass anymore, right? It's like, brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth can feel like a pain in the butt, but guess what? Like, if you would really enjoy the feeling of like a clean mouth and clean teeth and like, like that just feels really like, there's a feeling after you've brushed your teeth that it's like, it just feels like better. Like, there's that same feeling you can get from like understanding this contralateral rotational hip pattern
Hmm.
move, that like once your hips are able to move like that, then it's like, I actually want to do that move several times a week because it just feels better when I do it.
Right.
And so
Right.
if you're not doing, if you don't have the patience and you're trying to like rush and hurry up and get through, that flow running course is not for you. Right. Like,
I've,
it's, you're not going to
yeah,
benefit from it. So don't buy it. It's not going to help you. Like, I don't want to
I
sell
know.
it just to sell it. Like, I want people to benefit from it. And so it'd be like, it needs to go out really to the right person who is really curious and open-minded and wants to learn how
Right.
their body should function. That flow running course is very comprehensive and it will teach you all of this. But if you're not curious and you want a quick fix, it's not for you. So don't buy it.
Good.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Sadly, I do. It is what it is. Like that. I have, in particular, an athlete that I think would benefit immensely. However, their mindset is not in the right place and probably never will be. It's sad in that respect that, at least at this point in their lives, they probably are not open minded enough and willing to just adapt to a new routine, because that's all it is. I mean, once you accept and you get into the groove of the routine, it really does not take hardly any effort at all, right? To just go brush your teeth, go do your flow rope, go, which,
Well, the thing is,
yeah.
when you have, we make time for the things that are our priorities, right? And then what happens is like these moves become your priority because you like the way that you feel when you do them, or like after they're
Hmm.
done, you're like, oh man, my neck feels so much better, or like there's
Hmm.
ways that it's like I just feel open and free and relaxed and calm. I feel
Yeah.
calm. Like,
Yeah.
when you're running from
Yeah.
a place of calm, like you're
Yeah.
you're you're in the present moment, you're going to be able to give you a better effort than if you're striving and working really hard. I mean, there's such a limit to like that approach of like the work harder, see how high you can get your heart rate, like that kind of thing. And I've had an athlete that was working on that too. Like, I don't like, she didn't want it to be easier. She wanted it to be harder because the feeling of accomplishment for her was greater after, if she knew that she was just totally dead.
Yeah.
And so it's like
Yep.
something she was going for. I'm like, there's probably something that's driving that like psychological need for you to like hurt yourself as
Mhm.
much as possible. But also there's great joy in running with a sense of freedom and flow.
Mhm.
Like, it
Yeah.
can feel really good, right? And that in and of itself can be addicting, of like, it feels calm and relaxed and joyous and like
Yeah.
flowing.
And it's not a
And that, for
chore,
the
and it's, yeah,
longevity of it,
longevity.
right? For people
Yes.
who want to stay with this for the long term. And so that would be the last thing that I'll say, and then we'll cut this off because we've been going on long enough, is that even if you're even if you're older. So like it's way easier to change movement patterns when you're in your 20s. Way
Way.
easier. In your 30s, it's still possible to do. And it takes a little bit more time, but like, okay, in your 40s, it starts to get a lot harder. In your 50s, it's even harder. In your 60s, like if you're 60 or older and you want to change a movement pattern, you can, but the level of dedication and awareness and effort you're going to have to put in to make it happen is way, way higher, which means that your patience level is going to have to be higher.
Hmm.
Your commitment is going to have to be higher. Like your brain is not as plastic. The movement patterns that have been ingrained for decades longer, it's going to take longer. It is possible to do, but just know that like your path is different than that 30-year-old's path.
Right.
And it's
Absolutely.
and it's
Yeah.
harder. So by the way, if you're 30 or 40 and listening to this right now, like get on this stuff because at some point you're going to be 60.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're going to want to understand all of this.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if you're in the 60, 70 camp or older, hydrate, right? Like you can improve your movement patterns by having your fascia be more pliable. And so, what's the big,
Hmm.
one of the big things to do that can
Hmm.
aid in that is to hydrate, um, especially
Yeah.
now in the summer.
When I was learning about fascia and like what does it take to get healthy fascia, it wants to be hydrated. So like that is number one. But number two, interestingly, so like your fascia. So if you think about it, like it's this web. Fascia is what tightens us down. What it does is it conforms to the positions that we're in a lot. So, like, however,
Yeah, it
we're
makes
spending
sense.
a lot of time. So, like, if you're a triathlete and your TT bike is on your trainer, and you're spending a lot of time on your TT bike, during the week, and then
Hmm.
outside you're riding, and so you're just hunched up like that, and you sit a lot. So, like, the fascia along your anterior chain here is just it's going to get shorter and tighter because that is the position that
Yeah.
you spend time in a lot. And so your fascia will open up, but what it likes is really big, big movement patterns. And like that's
Hmm.
where the flow rope really comes in,
Right.
right? When I started doing flow rope, is it like you start flowing that rope and you're swinging it overhead. And what you're doing is it's like you're opening up these big fascial chains by like throwing this rope overhead and kind of
Hmm.
forcing, to open up more. But when I realized that it's like, if you think about the positions that you're in a lot, that your fascia is conforming to that. And so if you want to reverse that a lot,
Hmm.
but like work on back bends, right? I mean, just like
Yeah.
what, like
Move.
anything that is like making you bigger in the front or that's just doing the opposite of the way that the position that you are commonly in, that will help improve fascial health. And the fascia likes to be moved and stretched out, but I don't think necessarily for long static periods. And so
Yeah.
like there's a possibility I'm wrong on that, but my understanding is what it likes is this sort of like contract and relax pattern where you like do the big movement and then come out of the big movement and then do the big movement and come out of the big movement. And same thing with rotation, like do the rotation, come out of the rotation. And I think that the results that you get from a mobility routine that pairs itself with movement instead of a static hold, I just think it's better for your fascia. There's a possibility I'm wrong on that, but that's where I'm currently at, is that I think that the movement is what you want.
Yeah.
Easy
I agree.
movement, right?
Easy.
Easy, big movement.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would think dance could be a good alter. I don't dance, but I would imagine that dance could be a good alternative too. If you're not into like the flow rope, but if you want to go dancing, like that would probably be a really good alternative. So
100%. And
yeah.
like, I realized too, at one point, I'm like dancing with my rope. But then I'm like, I can absolutely see how dancing would be a super alternative because you're moving like in different ways. Like that's the whole
Right.
thing, is
And
that
that's
like
all.
our bodies are built to move in all sorts of ways, big ways, in lots of different directions. We have the capacity to move forward and backward and sideways and up
Hmm.
and down and, and challenging yourself to move in those different ways. And if you feel uncoordinated, like, I mean, like
Yeah. It's
when I was in the thick of Ironman training, like, oh my God, like I couldn't do hopscotch or like I mean, you wanted me to do like a side shuffle, forget it. Like I was so in tune with this like
mm,
forward movement in small ways, that it was like you asked me to move in a different way. And like I just felt uncoordinated. And
hmm
like that's a real thing, but it's only because I just hadn't done
yeah,
it.
done it.
And you can
Yeah.
like train all that. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, this has been great. Thank you, Michelle,
Yeah.
for excellent knowledge and sharing. And yeah, check out Michelle's Monday movement. Is that what it's called? I
Yeah.
think
On the flow
I've got a
running.
book on the flow running. Yeah. Yeah,
YouTube.
YouTube. And if you like it, then she's got a whole course. And flowrunning.run or .com?
It's
Dot run.
flowrunning.run.
Dot run. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just send me a note or whatever. And like, I'm
Yes.
happy to talk you through it. Like that course isn't like, oh, it's like so big that I can't be bothered to deal with you individually. Like I totally can. Right. So like, just reach out if you're like, I don't know if that's right for me or not. Like reach out. I'll talk to you and I won't sell it to you if I don't think it's right for you. I don't, like
Yeah.
that's not where I'm at anymore.
Yeah. Right. Understand. Yeah. I'm in the same place, right? Like, yeah. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we will come up with our next topic for a couple weeks from now, and we will see you then. Thanks,
Oh,
Michelle.
sounds good. All right. Bye.
Okay.